I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast, broadcasting on a warm Taipei evening on Saturday, October 6th, 2018. Before getting started today, let me remind you to watch or listen to this week's YouTube playlist. You can find it in the playlist section of this YouTube channel, in the comments section below, or at the end of this video. Those are the best 10 videos of this past week, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate them as much as I did. Now, let's begin today's program. Free to fornicate. The kerfuffle over Kavanaugh is about one thing and one thing only: sex without consequences. That's it. Oh, I know that they claim this thing or that. In fact, they talk about everything except the one thing that they just can't tolerate: the restriction on their ability to have as much sex as they want, with as many people as they want, whenever they want, however they want it, without consequence. Please remember that this is a central argument behind a woman's right to choose. That's right, abortion. Why? Because if you couldn't murder your unborn child, you couldn't have as much sex as you wanted. It is natural in these awful days to ask ourselves about what it was that destroyed us. And many talk about this thing or that, and I myself tend to speak on and on about financial stuff. After all, I'm a finance guy. Was. But that's not the reason. None of that is. Any nation can survive anything if they have a strong moral code. The Jews are an excellent example of this. They lost their country, they lost everything, and they've been cast out of every European, Middle Eastern, and Central Asian country. They've been massacred everywhere, yet they still survived. Why? They had a strong moral code. Yes, I know that God's hand also protected them, but he did that, in part, by making sure that they never lost their core morality. Unfortunately, America has not been so fortunate. She's already lost her moral code, and all that's left is destruction. The only questions in my mind is, what exactly was lost and when it happened? The title of this piece should give you a clue as to what it was, but when, well, that'll take some looking into. But you're lucky that your faithful examiner of such things is ready to make that search easy for you. In just a few words, and here they are: cheap condoms, the contraceptive pill, abortion. Just those three things destroyed America. You could eliminate all the other stuff that is pushing America into the abyss, and she'd still die. In fact, those three things are a big part of the reason for all the other reasons why America is dying. You probably don't know this, but condoms only became inexpensive during the past century or so, and it was the petroleum revolution that enabled them to be so cheap. Unfortunately, condoms only work about 90% of the time. You couldn't have our free love generation if you got pregnant after sleeping around a few times, so we needed the contraceptive pill. But even that isn't perfect, so free love needed abortion on demand. When did all that happen? The 70s, the 1970s. Yes, condoms became cheaper a century ago, but the pill, as we call it, didn't hit the drugstores until about the 1960s, and even then you couldn't get them without a doctor's prescription. But then in 1973, America legalized the murder of children. After that, it was all over. Right now, 56 million babies are murdered every year around the world. 56 million. And America was the innovator of this foul genocide. In 20 years, over 1 billion babies will have been murdered. And it has been 55 years since Roe v. Wade. And it's all about free sex. All of it. It's also why the left is terrified of Brett Kavanaugh. They think that he might eliminate Roe v. Wade and bring consequences back to having sex. The idea that sex wouldn't be free anymore is terrifying to the left. And yes, it really is that simple. Now, before I started working on this ShockCast, a longtime reader left a comment that showed that I'm oversimplifying this situation. And this comment is an excellent example of why I value the comment section of Omega Shock so much, and why I spend so much time responding to comments. It's from a reader who calls himself Mangled Man. He said, "Well, I guess I get to agree, but disagree a little bit. So many waves and movements brought about the ease of your three to make such an impact. The 20s brought about the clubbing and night lifestyles that continued the decline in morality standards. And women empowerment started back there somewhere. Film glorified the nightlife like everyone was like this. Drug usage continued to rise along with the decline of morality standards. Then came the rise of acceptance of these stars with police records and histories filled with divorces and immorality. People wanted to emulate those people, and divorce picked up speed. In the 60s, a 26-year-old female had 2.6 children. I think this was close to 90%. This dropped to 15% or more through the 70s. This was orchestrated by evil people that had a population control agenda half-century old. They put this to work with a generation with a lust for fame and glory. Enter the British invasion with new religion and we are ripe for free love and sex, drugs, and rock and roll! ! This is the part where your three tools come in. The morals of former generations were no longer to be heeded. Welfare for minorities made it more profitable to have children out of wedlock. And this generation views sex outside of marriage as normal. Well, here is my response to his excellent comment. Hi, Mangled Man. This is all very true, and it was the petroleum revolution that allowed the cities to grow, and cities have always been a hotbed for immorality. When the tractor became commonplace, people moved from the countryside into the cities. The larger that a city grew, the more freedom you had to be as immoral as you wanted to be. You had fewer moral restrictions as a city grew in size. The key was anonymity. When your identity was hidden, you could sin without being criticized by your less sinful neighbors. So yes, the devil is in all of these details, and the sheer number of these details can make it hard to see the most important ones. Maybe I could put it this way. Think of a good society, a godly society, as opposed to the merely lowercase g godly. It would be much like any church, and when Satan wants to corrupt the church, there's one thing that he uses almost always: sex. I watched Satan do that to a church that I was attending. He destroyed a talented pastor by luring him into adultery, and I have heard countless stories that are horrifyingly similar. And there's one statistic that sickens me like no other: that half of all pastors are regular consumers of hardcore pornography. Nothing corrupts more quickly than illicit sex. Having said that, Satan is at work with bad music, bad movies, illicit drugs, and alcoholism. Seminaries have been infiltrated with modern ideas. Greed has kept pastors from speaking on painful subjects. Public schools have infected kids with bad ideas. Parents have been lured into being so busy that they can't pay attention to what their kids are actually doing. And now, our smartphones have grabbed what little attention that we had left, even here in Taiwan. But I still believe that sex has been the biggest killer. It was the first industry to make a profit on the internet, and now you can watch as much hardcore pornography as you want for free. When I left America in 1992, the question on the mind of every painfully single young man was, do you kiss on the first date? When I returned from Israel in 2006, still painfully single, that was no longer the question. And now I'm hearing of Christian men and women jumping into bed with each other on a first date. Our churches are the preservation of our society, the salt and light. When they are destroyed, there is no hope left for that society. Those are excellent points from a very historical perspective, Mangled Man. Well done, brother. This is the kind of comment that makes a comment section so important. Yours in Christ, John Little, Omegashock.com. Again, big thanks to Mangled Man. He's an excellent commenter, and I always enjoy his comments, among the many others who do so. So please, go on over to Omegashock.com and leave comments in the comment section. I value your input. Now we get to what I consider to be the most important part of the ShockCast, the news and analysis from this past week. But before going on, take a moment to click the subscribe button below and hit that bell to be notified when the next ShockCast happens. Those of you listening via MP3, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. And there's an important reason to be subscribed to the Shock Letter, since I usually do not have the time on the ShockCast to talk about more than just a quarter of the news that I analyze at Omegashock and the Shock Letter. So subscribe to the Shock Letter and get all the news and links that I analyze for free. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. Subscribing and unsubscribing is simple and easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone. Period. I'm not in this for the money and never will be. Okay, well, here's 7 articles on how the U.S. is so lost. The first one is 1 in 3 pass U.S. citizenship test, just 19% for Americans 45 and younger. In addition to the extreme lack of ethics among Americans, this is the second reason why America is so doomed. And yes, I really mean that word in all of its awful connotations. America is doomed. It's bad enough that half of Americans older than 45 can only pass the U.S. citizenship test, but less than 20% can pass under the age of 45? There literally is no hope for America. Don't tell me about Donald Trump and how he will make America great again. Don't tell me about how this person or that person had some vision from God that there would be a revival. If you believe those lies, you are foolish, very much so. There is no hope for America. She's finished, done, destroyed. She's a dead man walking. I think I confused the genders there, but doesn't matter. Dead man walking is the best explanation that I can have for America. And I am so sad. The next one is a staggering number of troops are fat and tired, report says. And this is about the U.S. military. I'm used to seeing corrupt third world militaries being fat and sloppy. But now the U.S. military is right up there with third world standards. Corrupt, fat, disgusting. Here's a quote that is utterly shocking and disgusting. Quote, broken down by service, the 2018 report lists the Army as the branch accounting for the highest percentage of overweight troops, with 69.4% of soldiers falling under this category. The Army was followed by the Coast Guard, 67.8%, the Navy, 64.6%, Air Force, 63.1%, and Marine Corps, 60.9%. The Marines? Seriously? And notice that this isn't some liberal newspaper saying this. This is the Military Times. America? You're a joke. You disgust me. The Chinese and the Russians are laughing at you. And don't forget, I'm an American too, and my family has a long military history in America. I am disgusted by this. It's insane. Moving on deeper into the horror of what America has become, this one is Kavanaugh is the tipping point for decline and fall of the United States, from Armstrong Economics. The following quote could have been said about my own family. Quote, if my family, who has fought in every war from the American Revolution onward, were alive today, they would seriously wonder what they even fought for, close quote. And that's from Martin Armstrong. A much earlier John Little died in the Second Battle of Trent, just after George Washington crossed the Delaware. That's right. In that famous painting, where George Washington is crossing the Delaware, there's a John Little in there somewhere. And he died for this. Then 1 in 4 Baltimore hospital admissions are babies addicted to opioids, from Zero Hedge. Every 15 minutes, a baby is born in Baltimore with an addiction to heroin. God help us all. Then we go back to Martin Armstrong. To live a creative life, we cannot fear being wrong. Armstrong Economics. It's an excellent point made by Martin Armstrong that points to part of the reason why our society is so foolish and corrupt. We are unwilling to even admit that we are wrong in anything. And that is so stupid that it makes me want to burn down our universities and seminaries. The seminaries, most of all. I am tired of arrogant fools. I've had to deal with them in church after church. I've had to deal with their students. When dealing with American Christians, I often have to deal with their proud stupidity, and I'm so very tired of dealing with it. One of the benefits of living abroad as an expat is having fewer Americans from American seminaries to deal with. And then the average American Christian is almost completely ignorant of the Bible, and it is so common that I am shocked when I find an exception. And it wasn't always this way. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Then also at Armstrong Economics, we have American politics has crossed the Rubicon. There's no going back. And the sad thing is, most people don't know what crossing the Rubicon actually means. I encourage you to look it up. It's important. This post is a bit earlier than the ones that I talked about above, but Armstrong speaks along the same theme, but this time strikes a truly ominous note with his last paragraph. Quote, I sincerely fear that Trump will be the very last democratically elected president. They will, from here on out, alter the actual voting counts to support their desired outcome. This is game over. Turn out the lights. As they said of Rome, they will still be laughing when the lights went out. Close quote. What fools we have been, we Americans. How utterly insane that we allowed our country to be pulled down by drooling idiots and corrupt scoundrels. How richly we deserve our fate. Then it's from Zero Hedge, a sign of the times, political divide in America, the worst it's ever been. Polarization is a common problem. You can think of the U.S. Civil War as another example of this polarization. In that conflict, the polarization was geographical and ideological. There are some of the same elements of that conflict that are in this conflict, and there's a moral factor in this one too. Slavery was evil, period. Still is evil. And the South refused to give up their slaves. Yes, I know that some people had additional motivations, but if the Southern aristocrats had been willing to give up their slaves, there would have been no war. The same goes for this war today. Democrats want everyone to be able to kill their babies. Republicans do not. Once upon a time, there were Democrats who were against the murder of babies, but not anymore. Unfortunately, Republicans aren't completely against the murder of the unborn, and too many Christians claim to be against abortion, but quietly go off and murder their unborn babies, or pressure their children to do so. Does there need to be another civil war over the murder of the unborn? Unfortunately, I believe that it may be necessary. The ground of America is stained with the blood of innocent children. But America has become too corrupt to even undo this foulest of evils. As if that wasn't bad enough, we have two entries to add to the growing evidence of a grand solar minimum. And we go back to Martin Armstrong on this one, who is an astute observer of these kinds of cycles. Titled Solar Minimum, Biggest Decline Maybe Ever. I should say that I don't want to alarm you, but that would be a lie. You need to be alarmed. Here's the first paragraph, quote, the sun is entering perhaps one of the deepest solar minima in thousands of years. Notice that he said more than 1,000, like as in thousands. Sunspots have been absent from most of 2018. This is really alarming. Since the start of 2018, there have been totally spotless days for weeks. The sun's ultraviolet output has sharply declined, and this is not going to end well. Close quote. This is going to be horrifying, just as the Bible said that it would be. And please understand this point. Remember that the Dark Ages were started because of a grand solar minimum. That's how it started. And it took over 1,000 years to recover. This next one is on the same vein. It's a YouTube video. It's Earth's, say that 3 times fast, Earth's thermosphere record cold and auroras with no CME. How ironic that the thermosphere is cooling at a rapid rate. Could it be that we are entering a grand solar minimum? Of course it's not could, it's are. We are entering a grand solar minimum. And as Armstrong mentions, this looks like it will be the worst in thousands of years. We may not even have a record of an event this bad. Now that's bad, but it gets even worse with this understatement about our bleak future. It's a Zero Hedge article called "Our Delusional Economy is Poised to Slam into the Brick Wall of Reality." This quote is the understatement of the century. Quote, "Here's the thing. Unless there's a very sudden and rapid change in how we are approaching the looming brick wall of resource shortages, the future is going to be quite difficult." Close quote. I'm honestly unsure that any of us will survive that difficulty. Chris Martenson is way too optimistic. This represents the death of billions of people. And finally, this last entry is the most important of all. I'd been watching FAI and their efforts to help the suffering Syrians, and they were working in close partnership with the Israel Defense Forces, as they also engaged in humanitarian relief efforts across the border in Syria. The title of this YouTube video is CNN FAI in Syria from YouTube. This is what it means to be Christian. And there are countless examples of Christians putting their lives on the line to show the love of Christ to a dying world. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. And I am glad to be able to share this 3.5 minute video that is a great example of what we must be if we truly follow Christ. Well done, FAI. I was worried about the work that they were doing in Syria and the people that were volunteering in that work and their safety. I'm glad they're back in Israel and safe. And my hope that we can all follow FAI's example and also put our lives on the line for others. Well, that's it for this week's ShockCast. I truly hope that you'll be ready for what is coming. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Proverbs 22:3. If you find a flaw in my reasoning, have a question, or wish to add your own viewpoint, leave a comment on the Omega Shock website or in the comment section below. Omega Shock readers and ShockCast listeners leave awesome comments, and I value each and every one of them. Again, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. It's free. Subscribing and unsubscribing is easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone, period. You have my promise on that. For those of you on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. All of that helps you and me get the message out. And as this video ends, you'll see links appear in boxes within this video. Those links will take you to other ShockCasts, a link to subscribe to the ShockCast, as well as a link to the playlist of the important videos of this past week. And you will see the links to that playlist in the comment section below. And so, allow me to close with this blessing from Numbers 6:24-26. Yevarechecha Yehovah Yeshmerecha. Ya'er Yehovah panav elecha vichuneka. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Numbers 6, 24 to 26. May your pastor give you the words that you need to continue walking the path that God calls you to follow.